Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. Like she said, my name is Emily Sperou. I'm a PhD student at, well, I just actually defended my dissertation, so I graduated. But still at Baylor right now. And I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit about some of the research we've been doing on leopard seals. Today I'm specifically going to talk about foraging, ecology, and some behavior within leopard seals. Just a little context about this video. This is drone footage from our field season 2 years ago in Tierra del Fuego, Chile, where you can see our team is getting ready to go sample that leopard seal. So if you don't know much about leopard seals, that's okay. That's why they flew me out here, just to tell you about this. So leopard seals are a species of pinnipeds, which are seals, sea lions, and walruses. On top of this, leopard seals are one of the Southern Ocean's apex predators, so they're at the top of the food chain. Leopard seals are also one of our ice seals, so that means it's thought that they're dependent on the ice for breeding and for reproduction. Now, in general, there is not a whole lot of information known about leopard seals, which actually makes them one of the least studied apex predators on Earth. Now, they are one of the least studied apex predators on Earth for a couple different reasons. First, they're known to live in very remote or hard-to-reach habitats like Antarctica. But then on top of this, they're known as a solitary species, just like you see in this photo, where you only see one of them at a time. They don't come into big harems or colonies like we see for a lot of species of pinnipeds. Now, as far as leopard seal distribution, historically it was thought that they just had this circumpolar distribution around Antarctica. However, more recent research shows that their distribution actually includes all of these subpolar locations like Chile, Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. And so with that, it's our team's goal to travel to all these different locations to learn as much as we can about the species as a whole, but also to understand how are they surviving in all these locations that are geographically very different. And so for the first location we're going to focus on today is Cape Giraffe, which is in the Western Antarctic Peninsula. Now, Cape Giraffe has a nice little aggregation of leopard seals there, where we're able to learn more about their foraging ecology, or basically their feeding strategies. Now, like I said, leopard seals are apex predators, so top of the food chain. But on top of this, they're known to have a very generalist-like diet. And so what this means is that they can forage on just about anything, from small ectotherms like krill, cephalopods, and fish, all the way up to larger endotherms like seabirds, including penguins, and they even eat other seals. So you can imagine being the top of the food chain and having this generalist-like diet. They exert a lot of top-down pressure or top-down effects on the Southern Ocean food web. Now, in general, a lot of research, we kind of assume that a lot of apex predators are generalist at the population level, like I mentioned with leopard seals. However, more recent research has really started focusing in on the individual level and has started showing that what we see at the individual level may not always be what we say at the population level, and that not all individuals are actually equivalent. And so to further emphasize this, I'm going to walk you through 4 different conceptual models where you're looking at both that population level and that individual level. So for each of these models, what you're looking at is an individual's feeding strategy throughout time, essentially, their trophic position throughout time. So for this first model, you have 3 individuals, the orange, the blue, and the green. And you notice they're doing the same thing throughout time. There's little variation within their trophic position or their diet throughout time. So we would say these are individual specialists, and they're within a specialist population. There's little variation between the individuals, making it a specialist population. On the other hand, this is an example of a generalist population where each individual is changing their trophic position through time. There's a lot of variation within each individual. And then there's a lot of variation between the individuals, shown by that larger black arrow, telling us generalist individuals within a generalist population. However, this is an example of another generalist population, where if you actually zoom in, it's filled up with a bunch of specialists. They're just specializing at different trophic levels. We call that niche partitioning. But due to the variation between them, we would naively call this a generalist population. And then lastly, here's another example of a generalist population where it's actually filled with a lot of with individual specialists and generalists, but we would just broadly say it's a generalist population. And so this brings me to my main questions for this project, which was first, are the leopard seals out at Cape Giraffe true individual generalist, or are they specialist? And then on top of this, do they maintain this level of specialization consistently throughout time? So if an individual is a true generalist, do they show this pattern every single year, or do they change their feeding strategies? So in order to do this work and answer these questions, I'm using stable isotope analysis. So how this works is basically as an individual consumes a prey resource, the isotopic signatures of carbon and nitrogen of that prey resource will be reflected in the individual's tissues. So essentially, you are what you eat. So if a leopard seal eats a penguin, we're going to be able to recognize that in the leopard seal's tissues. And so as you work your way up the food chain, you see changes in their carbon and nitrogen values that let us know which trophic position they're foraging on. And for this research, we're going to specifically focus more on nitrogen. So the higher the nitrogen values, that tells us they're probably feeding on something like seals or penguins or larger animals. Now, for this study, we're using leopard seal whiskers. So a leopard seal will grow its whisker for about a year until they molt that whisker and then grow again. So for this, what we're able to do is serially segment these whiskers into tiny little increments so we can get fine-scale data. Essentially, we can see what is the leopard seal foraging on almost every single day for up to a year. So we have roughly 46 whiskers for this study, and then on top of this, we had a subset of individuals where we had yearly repeat samples. So what we did is we saw an individual one year and we plucked their whisker, and then we went out another year, we saw that same individual and got another whisker. So we can actually see, are they doing the same patterns throughout multiple different years? Once we get the stable isotope values back, we're able to apply this specialization index formula that allows us to categorize each individual as a true generalist, specialist, or intermediate. And so jumping first to our results at the population level, the first thing that we saw is that majority of the individuals within our population, almost 60%, were true individual specialists. And only a small percentage, 13%, which is 6 individuals, were true individual generalists. Now that's really interesting considering we've been broadly claiming leopard seals to be generalist. On top of this, we found that there's 2 different types of specialists. There's what we call high trophic level specialists. So these are individuals who are consistently foraging on higher trophic level prey, probably Antarctic fur seals, penguins, and large fish. Whereas we also had a group of medium to low trophic level specialists, individuals consistently foraging on the lower trophic levels, probably on krill and cephalopods. And then when we looked across the length of the whiskers, we were able to confirm their specialization. So, for instance, the top 2 figures in the blue and the green are showing you an individual example from each of those categories. So you're looking at the nitrogen values along the length of the whisker. So notice for those top two figures, the line stays fairly consistent, telling us they're specializing, compared to the bottom figure is an example of a generalist. You can see it's switching its trophic positions throughout time, telling us it's a generalist forager. Staying with the population level, I then wanted to map out each category's isotopic space within time and to see how they overlap. So back again with our 4 different categories. And then this is first showing us our high trophic level specialists. So each of those dots represents one of the individuals within that group and their average isotopic value. And the key thing to note here is that that ellipse around them is showing their isotopic space, so essentially where and what they're foraging on, and their ellipse is very small. Then we add in our medium to low trophic level specialists and note that they're foraging at a lower trophic level than our high. Then we have our intermediates, and then lastly, our generalists, and that even though there's only 6 individuals there, they are occupying much larger space, making us think, oh, leopard seals are really this generalist population. So now moving on to the individual level, I wanted to look at each individual's isotopic space within their category and to see how they overlap. So first here we have our high trophic level specialist. So each of those different colors, variations of blue, represents an individual. So there's 13 ellipses in there, but it's hard to see because they're all right on top of each other, feeding on the same thing. They're all super compact, and they don't occupy a lot of space. Then we have our medium to low, who, again, lower trophic position, starting to occupy a little bit more space. compared to our intermediates and our generalists, who you can see those ellipses have really started to elongate vertically, telling us multiple trophic positions and overall just occupying a much larger range across the food web. Okay, so then back to our individuals we had repeat samples of. So our question was, do you do the same thing throughout time, or do you change your foraging strategies? And we saw overall 2 different patterns, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about each of them. So for one example, we have Rosie. This is seal 397. And overall, we had 4 whiskers from Rosie spanning over 10 years. And what we found is that Rosie is very consistent. She likes what she eats, and she did the same thing every single year. She was found to be a high trophic level specialist. So note, her isotopic space in the darker gray is really small compared to the light gray is the whole population's isotopic space. Then we have Penny, who did the complete opposite. We had 3 whiskers from her spanning over 5 years, and she showed behavioral flexibility. She switched her foraging patterns every single year, one year being a medium to low trophic level specialist, then a generalist, then a high trophic level specialist. So for the rest of our individuals, we saw these same patterns. Either you did long-term specialization like Rosie, or you changed your foraging patterns throughout time like Penny. So if you go back to thinking about those conceptual models that I showed you in the beginning and you put little leopard seals in there, what we see is that we have high trophic level specialist, we have our medium to low trophic level specialist, we have a group of intermediates, and then lastly, we do have a small group of generalists, again, only 6 individuals. And when you put it all together, we can say, yes, at the population level, leopard seals are generalists. There's a lot of variation between individuals and within that population. However, it's primarily driven by only 6 individuals who are those generalists, but it's really driven by the 2 different groups of specialists who are really occupying different isotopic spaces. Now, you may be wondering, why do we care that some leopard seals specialize, some switch? Why does it matter, right? Well, apex predators are known for their high energetic demand, their amazing foraging efficiency, and overall are just phenomenal hunters. And studies have shown that just a small handful of individuals foraging on the same prey item can cause huge declines in that prey population, and that is exactly what we're seeing happening out at Cape Giraffe to the cute Antarctic fur seal population. So that local Antarctic fur seal population has been declining drastically throughout the years, and the predation rate of leopard seals on their cute fur seal pups has been drastically increasing. And so the hypothesis has been that leopard seals are the primary cause of that decline in that fur seal population. So our research supports that, but it goes above and beyond and says it's only a handful of individuals that are actually doing that. It's these high trophic level specialists who are specializing consistently throughout time on those Antarctic fur seals. And so overall, the conclusions for this research were that most individuals are actually true specialists, and that there's actually, they're specializing at different trophic levels, showing their niche partitioning. We also see that some switch their foraging strategies throughout the years, showing their behavioral flexibility, which may be very advantageous with the changing climate and changes in prey availability, whereas others show what we call long-term specialization. And then a few long-term specialists are likely the cause of that decline in the Antarctic fur seal population. And so overall, this research just is really starting to emphasize the need to look at the individual level, especially for these apex predators, considering just a small amount of them can change food webs drastically. And we specifically need to do this for leopard seals in these subpolar locations where we have no idea what they're foraging on there. And I'm happy to say this research was actually accepted just about a month ago in Ecology and Evolution and should be coming out in the next month or so. Okay, so kind of flipping over, talking about now leopard seal behavior, I really wanted to give you guys some insight on some new research we've been doing where we're documenting leopard seal reproduction, behavior, all of that. And so for this research, we're gonna travel over to Chile, specifically 2 locations, Tierra del Fuego and Laguna San Rafael. And so our team has been fortunate to go to these locations over the last couple years to learn as much as we can about the leopard seals there. So both of these locations are unique for a couple different reasons. First, they are resident individual leopard seals in this area. So that means every year we go there, it's the same individuals coming back. We recognize them now. They have cute little names that we've given them. And we're able to take repeat samples from them over the years. Additionally, these are the only two places on Earth that we know of where you can see a leopard seal and its pup. So if you ever want to go see a leopard seal and its pup, this is where you have to go. And just to put it into perspective, how rare this actually is, this is a species of 24,000, right? Overall, there's only been 160 pups ever documented throughout history. And our team has been fortunate to see a handful of them. But overall, due to the scarcity of being able to actually see these moms and pups, there is basically nothing known about leopard seal reproductive patterns, reproductive behaviors, maternal investment. We know absolutely nothing. And so our team has been traveling to this location, trying to observe the leopard seals and their pups as much as we can. And over the last couple of years, we have been observing a really rare maternal behavior that I'm going to talk to you guys about today. And this behavior is not a happy one, but it's called postmortem attentive behavior. And so this behavior is any type of attention or care from one individual towards a dead conspecific. And so this is most commonly seen in mothers towards their dead offspring, and this is what we've been seeing for leopard seals, is that the mothers are showing this behavior towards their dead pups who are dying out there. And so this behavior has typically been mentioned more in chimpanzees, elephants, and cetaceans, which are whales and dolphins. And it's thought that those types of mammals are known to do this type of behavior because they're known to give a lot of maternal investment. And essentially the hypothesis is the mothers have a hard time letting go of the dead offspring, so they do things like carrying it around for days, staying in close proximity to it, grooming it, anything like that. Now, pinnipeds, or seals and sea lions, are not known for their maternal investment at all. They're known to actually give some of the least amount of maternal investment within the mammalian kingdom. However, like I said, we know nothing about the maternal investment of leopard seals, and we know leopard seals are very unique compared to the rest of the pinnipeds. And so overall, we've been documenting this behavior now over the last couple years in leopard seals, specifically in two different individuals in two different locations. And so I don't have time to go through all the different videos and footage that we have on this, but basically what we're seeing is that these mothers are carrying around their dead pups, traveling to the different icebergs, hauling out or coming out of the water onto the iceberg, and staying in constant proximity to it, constant care and attention towards it. And we've documented the mothers doing this for some of them 20 plus days, which is actually one of the longest documentations of postmortem attentive behavior within the mammalian kingdom. On top of this, we documented one mother doing this in 3 different years, which again is also the longest time it's been documented for any species. So overall, we're starting to really try to hypothesize, why are they doing this? And we have a couple ideas. One of the main things is that that leopard seals may be just giving more maternal investment than what we originally are thinking. And so with that, a lot of our research needs to focus on what does maternal investment look like in leopard seals, understanding why are the pups dying in this location also, and moving forward to understanding their reproductive biology. And so this is really where, there we go, my postdoc work is taking off, is continuing to understand their reproductive biology, their reproductive patterns and behaviors as much as we can. So this includes going to the field, continuing to observe these animals, using necropsies that I've done to look at reproductive anatomy, which has never been described in the leopard seal, and then also using historical samples specifically from museums to look at their overall lifetime reproductive success. And so all of this work will give us a much more comprehensive understanding of leopard seal reproductive behavior and biology, but also have huge implications for understanding how do we protect this species, especially in these subpolar locations where we know basically nothing about them. And so for acknowledgments of this work, we've been really fortunate to have been funded by a lot of different agencies. I've been lucky that I've been a Lewis and Clark recipient now twice to fund some of this work, which I'm really, really grateful for. And then on top of this is a huge international collaboration. So we have collaborators all around the world working on this project with us, and it's a huge group effort. With that, I will take any questions. Okay,
Fantastic.
do you want me to talk, or you can?
Yeah, we'll just start at the front here.
Hi, Brian Joseph from Ohio State University. Very, very nice, very informative, and I could follow it, which I appreciated. I wondered about the caring for the death of a. Do you have any sense of how they determine how a mother determines that a pup is dead? Is it an absence of breathing, absence of motion, or they must have some conception in a certain sense of what it means to be alive and what it means to be dead?
Yeah, we really don't know if the moms are figuring out if the pups are dead or about what time do they actually figure out when the pups are dead. At some point, they eventually abandon them. But we've seen a mom try to get her pup to feed, and it's not moving. We've seen them, at some point though, we've seen also the mothers like completely on top of the pups. These are huge, huge animals and completely squish their pups when they do that, but they're already dead at that point. So the answer is no. I have no idea if they're determining when the pups are dying or how they do that. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, whoever said that.
Okay. Have you also looked at how these mothers attend to their live kids and compare that to how they do their dead ones?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, for the pups out in this area, we've only seen them alive for a couple of days, and then from there, they seem to be dying. So we have quite a few different hypotheses as to why the pre-weaning mortality rate is so high. One example is that where they're having pups in Chile, in Laguna San Rafael and Tierra del Fuego, the icebergs are very small. And at this point, the icebergs start to shrink and they break. We've seen them completely break throughout one day. And at that time, those pups are not able to thermoregulate. So if those pups fall into the water, they will die. And so we think that might be what's happening. Basically, the mothers are having pups in areas that are not good for them to have their pups in. Yeah, not optimal.
In the
Yeah.
back.
Thank you so much for a wonderful talk. I've noticed in your photographs that there seems to be an articulation by the mother. The mouth is open. Mm-hmm. Do you have recordings of any of these sounds, and do you have anything similar to a form of lament?
So yes, we do have. We actually just are submitting this paper next week to a Journal of Animal Behavior, where we have tons of footage on this behavior. I mean, hours. I think in total we collected 8,000 photos and like 170 videos. So typically that moment where she is lifting her mouth and then closing it is usually because we are approaching and she's showing more territorial or protection at that time, what we think. And yeah, did I answer your question fully? Sorry.
Yes and no, but are there any
Okay, so overall, after observing all of the, and recording all of the behavior, the only patterns we're able to see consistently is that anytime we start to approach, right, because we have to be there in order to record the behavior, anytime we start to approach, the mother will consistently lay on top of the pup and in a sense try to hide it from us. And then at some point in almost all of our videos, she ends up grabbing the dead pup by the neck and jumping into the water and swimming away with it. And so that behavior in itself is extremely unique. Pinnipeds are not known to carry around their pups even when they're alive. You think about when they're swimming, that's essentially a 200-pound pup that causes a lot of drag, and energetically it's very costly to do that. So that in itself is a very unique behavior that we're seeing as well. Yeah. So many questions. Yeah. Or sorry. Yeah.
Rich here in Indiana. great talk. If any of us had a postdoc available, we'd be happy to take you. The question is, you seem to imply, you didn't say, that the individual differences were due to food preferences. How do we know that they're not due to variations in the food sources?
Yeah, that's a good question. So part of the paper that I didn't mention here is we do look at just yearly changes in the prey availability, and we don't actually see these huge changes except for that Antarctic fur seal population that's been declining. And for some reason, somehow, those high trophic level specialists, even in the years where that fur seal population is still declining, we see them still out there feeding on the last little fur seal pups. So they're still able to, it seems like they are preferentially choosing those fur seal pups. They are seen just like waiting in the waters for those little pups to start coming in, and then they just attack. And so on top of everything that we have here, as far as looking at the stable isotope analysis, we also have a lot of critter cam data where we're able to see those individuals and what they're actually eating.
Last question.
Hi, I agree, a great talk, and I think all of us enjoy the intrinsic interest of it. But if you had to make a case to a skeptic about why this is useful knowledge, what would you say?
Yeah, so this is useful knowledge, and if you care about ecology at all. So specifically,
Good for you.
Specifically in these subpolar locations, we have no idea what they're feeding on. So to give you an example, in Laguna San Rafael, there are no penguins, there are no fur seals, so we're like, what are they eating besides maybe fish? And on top of that, there's only so many individuals there right now, but we have started to see this population increase throughout the year. And so one thing that we need to know is if this population is increasing, what are they feeding on, and will it cause any type of cascading effects to the other populations toward competition, anything like that. On top of this, we know about their distribution, but we're learning so much more about it. Like every time we go out to study these animals, we start to get even more information. And part of it is just understanding, do they have the potential to cause cascading effects within that ecosystem that they're in, especially if they start to change their distribution and come into a new ecosystem, a new food web. Are they going to kick out others because of competition? Are they going to cause declines of those other species? Things like that. So, yeah.
Great. Dr. Sperou, thank you very much.
Thank you.